sharing my screen. Here we go. Tip number 1 would be to talk about how someone's performance impacted you personally. In other words, what did they do that had a personal impact on you, that made you feel a certain emotion, that made your life easier, that inspired you, that motivated you? How did their actions have an impact personally on you? Now, in speaking, if you're evaluating a presentation, this can be a lot easier because perhaps a speaker is telling a story and you can really connect with that story. Maybe they're telling a story about their family and you can see yourself, your own family and what they're describing, and therefore you can be connected to that and you're impacted by that. But in the workplace, we can also find ways to articulate how certain actions impact us. Maybe you've got someone, a colleague at work, who is always on time, always sharp, always punctual, and you can talk about how that inspires you and encourages you to be more punctual yourself, or that it makes your life so much more easier because they are setting the example for the rest of the team. There's a way in which you can talk about how what they've done has personally impacted you, has personally improved your outlook, or maybe even improved your life as well. My second tip for you is along the lines again of what I just described there, but it's slightly different. To talk about the unique quality someone has. In other words, what is unique about them? What makes them stand out as the standout duck in the pond? When you talk about someone's uniqueness, the beauty in this is that you're often talking about their personality. Because personalities are ultimately what makes us unique. Our personality is what determines how we act, right? So if you can compliment someone's uniqueness, in other words, compliment their personality, you'll make them feel more confident when they're at work. For instance, maybe you have someone at work who always has such a positive outlook. They always come into the office smiling, or they're always cracking jokes, making other people feel good. If you compliment them on that quality, they're going to show more of that going forward. So that is a great way to pick out a positive. Talk about what makes them unique, what makes them stand out, what makes them different. Third tip for you would be, when giving feedback, to make sure you have examples. When you give feedback and you say that someone was great at negotiating, but you don't give an example, it makes that compliment quite hollow. But if you say to someone, you know, Charles, it was brilliant when you were negotiating in that meeting, especially when that guy said that we are not going below 50% drop, and you got him even further down to 60%. That was brilliant. You know, by giving a specific example of when someone did negotiate well, it gives that more meaning, more value, and it creates clarity. That key word for us today. If I'm giving a speaker feedback and I say to them, you have really good gestures, that's not very good. What I need to do instead is say to them, you know, your gestures are brilliant. I really loved the one where you were pretending to hold a tiny baby bird, because it made me feel like I was there with you. I could imagine that baby bird in your hands. So keep up those descriptive gestures. By me highlighting that key moment, it encourages that speaker to do more descriptive gestures like that and make his or her stories more compelling. So always have an example when you're giving a compliment, regardless. In fact, always have an example when you're giving feedback, regardless if it's a compliment or a suggestion for improvement. Examples create clarity. Fourth tip for you. Now, this one might seem a little bit bizarre at first, but just stick with me for a second here. My fourth tip would be ice cream. I'm kidding. My fourth tip would be to be diverse with your compliments. Be diverse when celebrating someone. Imagine for a second that each one of these ice cream flavors represents a different skill. Maybe vanilla, for instance, represents knowledge-based skills. In other words, job-based skills. If we're giving feedback to a data analyst, vanilla feedback would be complimenting them on their ability to analyze data. But you know and I know there's far more skills out there than just knowledge-based skills. There's also interpersonal skills, strawberry ice cream, how someone is a great listener, or how someone has a motivated attitude, or how someone's personality plays a role on how effective they are at work. You can compliment people on those skills as well. And likewise, you can compliment them on their transferable skills, on their chocolate ice cream. Talk about how they've got great leadership skills, or how they've got great creativity skills, or multitasking skills. The problem is when we give feedback, we tend to just focus on knowledge-based skills, vanilla ice cream, when there are so much more flavors we can explore with our feedback. So try to be diverse with your feedback so that you can give a speaker or a person rather a comprehensive overview of their performance. Very important. Amora, it is yummy. I love that. I love that. Now, my fifth and final tip is a very serious one. If you take nothing from what I've said so far, let it be this. Because the fifth and final tip applies across the board, whether you're giving a compliment or whether you're giving a suggestion. And here it is. Tip number 5 is to get to the why. To get to the why. You have to explain why something is good, or you have to explain why something is bad. We must understand that human beings, they require that knowledge, they require that insight. If you tell me why what I'm doing is good, I'm far more likely to do it more going forward. And likewise, if you give me a reason why something is bad and I agree with it, I'm far more likely to stop that behavior going forward as well. So you have to get to the why. Why is this thing good? If someone is really good at facilitating meetings, talk about why that is so beneficial to the team, what that brings to the table. It means we can control the room better. It means we can be more on time. It means everybody is heard in the meeting, so the best ideas come forward. Talk about the why behind the compliment. This is absolutely critical. So just to summarize those 5 tips for you, when it comes to celebrating a speaker, here are some ideas on how you can do that effectively. Number 1, talk about how what they did impacted you. Secondly, talk about their unique quality. What was unique about them at work that has had an impact on you that you'd like to see more of? 3, use examples to create clarity, crystal clear clarity, so people have an idea of what moment they did was well and what they need to continue doing going forward. And 4, be diverse, right? Use all flavors of ice cream. Do not get stuck in just terms of complimenting someone for their job. Compliment their interpersonal skills. Compliment their transferable skills as well. And number 5, why. You've got to explain why it's good.